will not be seen tonight, in order that we bring you the following WTAE-TV special presentation.
Good evening, I'm Sally Wiggin. Tonight, a special program from WTAE-TV. You've seen the commercials, you've heard the rhetoric. Now, let's take a look behind the scenes at two very different candidates for Allegheny County Executive.
You remember, I went to Fifth Avenue High School, where you had to stand head-to-head, face-to-face in the boys' locker room and engage in some repartee that cannot be discussed openly on public television.
I came home one evening and she's reading the paper and she said, "I didn't know you made this much money." And she had a list of things that we could do at the house.
In the next century, Allegheny County is embarking on a new form of government that includes Allegheny County's first ever county executive. As we visit the homes of Jim Roddy and Cyril Weck, you'll hear about their families, the issues, and the events that have molded them candidates.
There was a recognition then, Sally, that county government was an old, archaic system whose time had passed. And in this fast-changing world, entering into the new century, entering into the new millennium, that we had to have a new type of government that could be more responsive, that could deal with the economic development problems.
That recognition gave birth to Compact 21, the committee to prepare Allegheny County for the 21st century. County Commissioners Forster and Flaherty asked Duquesne University President John Murray to head an independent blue ribbon panel to look into the future of county government and the concept of home rule. That was around 1995.
When we filed our report, it appeared that it would gather dust on someone's shelf. The two Republican commissioners were the first majority Republican commissioners in 60 years. And as they entered office, we were suggesting that there be only one county executive.
But over the next year, all three current commissioners and almost all of the former ones were on board, supporting the strong executive concept, with an elected county executive who appoints a county manager and checks and balances coming from an elected county council. Next step, Harrisburg, a tougher sell. But the legislature granted the county the right to put the issue of home rule before the voters, and it passed by less than 600 votes. City Controller Tom Flaherty led the opposition.
I think we almost won is because we had the compelling arguments. I think their arguments were boring. It was economic development. Boring, boring, boring. Economic development is boring.
But there are people who believe that this form of government is a step towards stopping the population hemorrhaging that they think is hurting this region and people.
Now this is my rock collection. Ellen decided that every man needed a collection. And I didn't have a collection of any kind, so she decided to get me a rock collection.
Actually, Jim Roddy has been collecting most of his adult life. Titles, companies, campaigns, and awards. Captain in the Marine Corps, president of Turner Communication, now chairman of Wexford Healthcare Resources. He was also campaign chairman of Allegheny County's United Way Fund and the United Negro College Fund, as well as chairman of the Port Authority at one time, to name just a few. He ran two statewide campaigns, Barbara Hafer's Auditor General campaign and Mike Fisher's run for Attorney General. On the 50th anniversary of Israel, he was one of 19 Americans designated as a friend of Israel by Israel Bonds.
Ellen and I flew to New York and to the UN, and Abba Eban came and presented me with this award.
Jim Roddy was born in North Carolina 66 years ago. He's actually been here in Pittsburgh longer than anywhere else, and came here to buy Pittsburgh outdoor advertising. Roddy's children, Margaret, Ellen, and James, were already grown, so now vacations include visiting grandkids in both Dallas, Texas, and Portland, Oregon, and boating on the Chesapeake. While there are no sailboats now, there is a fishing boat.
And the name of it is the Old Coot. And Ellen named it so that when she was on the dock and I would be going off on my boat, she could say, "There goes the Old Coot."
He met his wife, Ellen, a Texan, at Texas Christian University, while he was climbing in a women's dorm room window to meet her roommate. Tell me a little bit about how the two of you met at Texas Christian University, right?
Well, I guess I'll tell the story. Ellen was checking into school a little late. She had been going to school in Europe, I guess, for the summer. And she checked into TCU late, and I had been there early. And I had managed to meet a young lady who turned out to be Ellen's roommate, although I didn't know that at the time. And so we met when I was climbing in the girls' dormitory room in the first floor, climbing in the window, and there was Ellen unpacking her bags. Now, in those days, men didn't go in the girls' dormitory, so I was not supposed to be climbing in the window.
Were you a rascal?
Oh, no.
He was the bad boy of TCU.
Oh, my goodness.
All the girls in the dorm said, you can't go out with him. He's the bad boy.
Is he still a rascal?
In a lot of ways, yes, he is. He loves to surprise me.
What has not been written that we would be surprised about that you're allowed to say on camera?
I don't know. There's never been much said about the time that I was an athlete. And, I'm very proud of that. And all men, men in their egos love to be remembered as great athletes. And nothing is ever said about that. And that.
When he first was making the decision and was being prevailed upon by business leaders and friends to run, honestly, what did you say to him?
I know that he is the right man to do this. And that's what I just kept telling myself.
But did you want him to do it? You know he's the right man for it.
No, of course not.
I came home one evening and she's reading the paper and she said, I didn't know you made this much money. And she had a list of things that we could do at the house.
That was interesting, I must say.
Let's talk about money. Are you finding that in this campaign that it is a disadvantage, it's a hindrance to you, that you're having to shed an image of Duquesne Jim, Diamond Jim?
Not really. I don't worry about that because when, I came from a very modest family. My father was in the Navy. I went to college on an athletic scholarship. I was in the Marine Corps. Came out of the Marines. I had Ellen, and we had 2 children, and a grand total of $600. And so I started in business then. So the fact that I've been successful in business, I'm not ashamed of at all. I'm quite proud of it.
How much of this is ego?
I don't know. I can't give you a percentage, but it has to be some. But you have to always remember not to take yourself too seriously, and remember that you're really not so much getting in front to be an individual. You're getting in front to serve other people.
Very few decide at this stage to actually run themselves. They may run a campaign, but to run themselves, very few men or women make this choice. Why this time did you do it?
I guess I'm a fix-it person. I was called on to fix things at the Regatta or WQED or the Port Authority, and I enjoy those kinds of challenges. And so this is not about a political career, and I don't need the job. I really don't have to worry about getting reelected. I can do just what is right, and that's a real wonderful feeling.
What do you like? What don't you like?
I like meeting people. What I don't like are the pettiness of politics and the backbiting and the negative aspects of campaigning.
Mrs. Roddy, what have you found that you actually like about all of this, and what don't you like?
I'm not sure I've found anything I like.
I mentioned a perception of politics. There also seems to be, at least among some people, and perhaps especially in this area, a perception that business today, the corporate world, lacks compassion. And when you talk about running the county like a business, how do you think voters who feel deserted by big business in this area will welcome that?
I'm talking about things like setting goals, making people accountable, asking people to come to work and work all day, and something called customer service. And I doubt if many people in this county feel that they are valued customers of county government. And we need to change that. We need for people to feel that their government cares about them. We're the 4th highest tax community in this country. And our property assessment system is archaic. It's third world. We have maps that haven't been redrawn since the 50s. We have areas that haven't been reassessed in 20 years. We're going to have to reduce the cost of government in order to cut the taxes.
How do you do that?
By efficiencies, by purchasing more efficiently, by getting an integrated computer system, by doing any number of things that will make our government much more efficient.
How would you characterize your opponent's campaign against you?
Well, it's just, it's politics. Here's his tax plan, and his tax plan is better than my tax plan, and he's taking shots at me. One conversation he was having, he said, while he was doing an autopsy, I was at the polo matches. Well, I wasn't at the polo matches, I was at church. But, you know, those sort of nonsense things that go on in politics. I think the campaign has been interesting. You know, he's trying to characterize me as being someone who is not part of the common people, that I'm coming from the business community, and that I don't have compassion for the working man or the working woman. And that's what we expected. And that kind of nonsense goes on in all political campaigns, I'm sure. And I have characterized him as being a politician. He's run 9 times. He's been in office for 30 years. And so I think mine is a fair characterization and his is not. But I'm sure he takes the opposite view. So, but that's politics. That's why we have an election. And we'll let the people decide.
For more than 30 years, Cyril Wecht has been a vocal part of the Democratic political scene, locally, statewide, and nationally.
There's one over here with Tip O'Neill.
Now, where was this taken?
When I was chairman of the party, and he came into town somewhere, I think this was 1982, as a matter of fact, the year I was running for U.S. Senate.
Wecht lost that run to a popular incumbent, the Commissioner County Coroner, the second time elected to that job. How does your wife feel about all this political activity?
She's not wild about it. I think that the only person who really has and has had from the beginning, a strong positive feeling about it was my son David.
Wecht's wife Sigrid, a practicing attorney and a native of Norway, prefers to support her husband from behind the scenes and declined our request for an interview. But she and the 4 Wecht children and 5 grandchildren all pitch in on the campaign. Now, this is all of you together?
This one is the boys, I think, at one of the Greek rooms. Here are 2 of the boys under a piano at a wonderful palace in Athens and having a good time.
So your children have had the benefit of traveling all over the world,
yes,
with you, and
Europe,
still have decided to come back here and live.
Yes, that's right. And they've gone to Yale and Harvard and Penn and Dartmouth and Stanford and Georgetown, and they've all come back here.
Wecht, with both medical and law degrees, lectures at universities around the world. A top forensic pathologist, he holds 6 professorships locally and is an expert on such headline-making cases as the Kennedy assassinations, U.S. Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, and Rene Ramsey. Why would you want to run for office in, you know, an aging county in western Pennsylvania, to run that county? Why would you want to do that?
Well, as you know, Sally, although I have been very active in my profession over these past 4 decades, I've also been quite interested and actively involved in government and politics. In fact, it goes back even to my high school and college days when I was very active and president of the class and president of the student body at Pitt and things like that.
Why then were you attracted to running for office? Was it a burning desire to help others, or a little bit of both?
I just never thought about it. I really can't answer the question now because I never asked myself the question then. I don't think it was ego. These were things that I like to do.
People who listen to you, though, would say that you speak like an academic, that, and you do speak that way all the time, and that you're incredibly detail-oriented. Do you think that you have trouble sometimes communicating your ideas because you do speak that way, because you think differently than average people?
Well, Again, the answer to the first part of the question is a matter of record or daily observation. I've got no problem in communicating, and and I thank you for the compliment that it seems like I speak as an academic, you ought to hear me on other occasions when it is necessary. Remember, I went to Fifth Avenue High School, where you had to stand head-to-head, face-to-face in the boys' locker room and engage in some repartee that cannot be discussed openly on public television. So I can speak with everybody.
So you can swear with the best of them.
At any level, I can assure you. And I get the message across. It's not a problem. Insofar as detail is concerned, I am obsessive-compulsive, but not neurotically so. I like to do things well, and I insist that other people perform, but I don't get uptight about details that are meaningless. And I also have no problem whatsoever in delegating duties.
But despite all this cranial activity, Weck claims he can relax.
First of all, aside from this arduous campaign, which goes from morning till night, 7 days a week, but in normal life, I go to the community center here, and I try to swim every day if I can, 30 to 45 minutes. I love to take steam, and I like to, you know, sit there and kibitz a little bit with the guys. I like to play tennis when I get a chance, and I love being with my family, and I love to take vacations. So I never have a problem in taking things out of my mind when the occasion arises.
There would be some who would say there needs to be a business like mine running a county the size of Allegheny County, that it needs to be run like a business now for it to become economically healthy. What would you say to that?
I believe that to run government in a business-like fashion is indeed necessary, and I intend to do that. So this idea that because I'm a physician, an attorney, that I have no business sense or no business experience is simply incorrect. It's not an accurate portrayal.
Let's go back to how you met your wife and how you ended up in the Air Force as a captain. How did that come about? In
the days that I was in college, there was obligatory 2-year service in the military. And I called her up and I asked her to come over. She still tells that story, how frightened she was when she got a cap. I got a call, I said, "This is Captain Weck. I need to see you in my office." You know, I figured if I kept it official like that, if I didn't like what I was seeing, that I could have some cockamamie thing about some record or so on, and without hurting anybody's feelings, you know, on the other hand, if I...
So you were trying to be gallant at the same time you were being a bit of a detective?
Yes, and maybe a male chauvinist pigger, if you want to call it that, too.
But far more taxing than a first date is pleasing the public on the issue of property taxes.
Now, insofar as cutting the property tax, I'm not happy about that, but I feel that it is something that a very substantial percentage of the taxpayers want. So it's not a matter of giving in to something because it's politically expedient to do so, but I think any government official, candidate, or office holder has a duty to listen to what the voters are saying, to what the constituents are saying. My plan is one that I'm comfortable with because it gives the greatest benefit to the people who need it the most. The people in the lower socioeconomic levels, the disabled, the people living on pensions and so on. That's my plan.
All right, how would you characterize your opponent's campaign?
It has been disingenuous. Certainly, this business of it makes no difference, folks, says he, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. Yeah, sure. I want him to tell that to the state and national Republican committees, which are investing a great deal of time, effort, and money. It has been also a campaign which is incredibly flexible, that will be whatever is needed. If he talks to the labor union leaders, he'll tell them one thing. When I pick up the Tribune Review the other day, he's slamming the labor unions and me for having made a devil's pact between us that is going to lead this county to hell. The bottom line for me is providing services. I'm not going to make this county go bankrupt because if I'm not successful, I'm out of there in 4 years. I'm going to make this county succeed.
Be made as the reign of the county commissioners comes to an end and a new form of government begins. You've heard from both the candidates, their motivations, and their views on several issues. So, on November 2nd, be a part of history. Vote. If this new form of government is to work, your participation is more important than ever. I'm Sally Wiggin. Good night.
Actually, we've lived in Pittsburgh longer than we lived anywhere else that we've ever lived.
I really don't take well to people challenging me on things that I can do, and especially when they are written in history that I did do them.
When I came out of college, I went into the Marine Corps. It gave me a sense of leadership. It taught me the principles of leadership. It taught me that I could be as tough as I needed to be.
I've lived here all my life. I have my family here. Incredibly fortunate for my wife and me that all 4 of our children are here.
And I doubt if many people in this county feel that they are valued customers of county government. And we need to change that.
I consider myself upper middle class. I would have no objection or find it insulting if somebody said that I'm wealthy.
Right now,